I stood at my MBA graduation ceremony, watching families celebrate around me while my phone buzzed with a text from my father. Don't expect help. You're on your own. Just as humiliation washed over me, my phone rang loudly. It was my CFO calling about our stealth startup's IPO results. The entire auditorium fell silent as I answered, and everyone heard. The IPO hit $4 billion. You're officially a billionaire. My father's shocked face turned pale as he realized his helpless son just became one of the youngest tech billionaires in America. Growing up in Dallas as the son of Robert Thompson, a prominent real estate developer, I learned early that success came in only one flavor in our family. My father built his empire from nothing, turning a small construction company into a $100 million real estate development firm. Every conversation at our dinner table revolved around deals, properties, and profit margins. Success meant following the Thompson family blueprint: get a business degree, join the family company, and expand the empire. My older brother Marcus embodied everything my father valued. He graduated from law school at 25, joined our father's firm as general counsel, and quickly became Robert's right-hand man. Marcus spoke my father's language fluently, understanding zoning laws, construction permits, and municipal regulations like they were his native tongue. At family gatherings, Robert would beam with pride as Marcus discussed their latest commercial development projects. Then there was me, Zane Thompson, the family disappointment who spent too much time with computers. My fascination with technology started when I was 12 years old and received my first laptop for Christmas. While Marcus studied business law, I taught myself programming languages. I spent hours building websites, creating simple games, and exploring the endless possibilities of code. My father dismissed it as a phase, calling it playing with toys whenever he caught me coding late at night. The breaking point came during my sophomore year of college. I had been working on an idea for months, a revolutionary concept that could transform how companies manage their logistics and supply chains. I called it FlowStream, an AI-powered platform that could reduce shipping costs and improve delivery times for any business. My roommate Jake, a computer science genius from Oregon, became obsessed with the technical challenges. We spent countless nights in our dorm room, surviving on energy drinks and pizza while we built the initial prototype. Jake handled the complex algorithms while I focused on the business applications and user interface. After 6 months of development, we had something incredible. Our AI system could analyze shipping patterns, predict optimal routes, and automatically adjust for weather delays, traffic conditions, and warehouse capacity. We tested it with a local pizza delivery chain and reduced their delivery times by 35% while cutting fuel costs in half. I knew we had something special, but I needed capital to turn it into a real company. I gathered every ounce of courage and approached my father for a loan. Not a gift, not an investment, just a simple business loan with interest and repayment terms. I prepared a comprehensive presentation, complete with market analysis, financial projections, and competitive research. I practiced my pitch for weeks, anticipating every possible question. When I finally sat down with Robert in his mahogany-paneled office, I felt confident and prepared. He listened for exactly 7 minutes before cutting me off with a laugh. "Zane, when you're ready to do real business like your brother, come talk to me. This computer hobby needs to stop. You're 20 years old, not 12. Focus on your business classes and forget about these fantasy projects." The rejection felt like a physical blow. I tried to explain the market opportunity, the potential revenue streams, the scalability of the platform. Robert held up his hand and shook his head. "Son, I've been in business for 30 years. I know what works and what doesn't. Technology companies are risky ventures run by dreamers who don't understand fundamental business principles. Real wealth comes from tangible assets, real estate, and proven business models." He leaned back in his leather chair and fixed me with a stern look. "If you want to succeed in this family, you'll join our company after graduation and learn the business from the ground up." Marcus started in the mailroom and worked his way up through every department. That's how you build character and business acumen. I left his office feeling crushed but also strangely liberated. His rejection hurt, but it also freed me from seeking his approval. I would build FlowStream without him, prove that technology could create real value, and show him that success wasn't limited to his narrow definition. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I would incorporate FlowStream using student loans and credit cards. Jake and I would build this company in secret, away from my family's judgment and interference. If we failed, at least we would fail on our own terms. The next morning, I walked into the campus legal aid office and filed the paperwork to establish FlowStream Technologies, LLC. Jake and I were equal partners, two college students with a revolutionary idea and zero capital. We had no idea we were taking the first step toward building a $4 billion empire. Building a technology company while maintaining the facade of a struggling college student required skills I never knew I possessed. Jake and I rented a tiny office above a sandwich shop near campus, paying $300 a month for 200 square feet of space with questionable heating and unreliable internet. During the day, I attended my business classes and pretended to struggle with basic concepts while secretly applying advanced strategic principles to our growing company. My professors had no idea that their lessons on market penetration and competitive advantage were being implemented in real time by one of their students. Our breakthrough came during spring break of my junior year. While my classmates went to Florida beaches, Jake and I worked 18-hour days perfecting our AI algorithms. We had identified a critical flaw in how existing logistics software handled multimodal transportation, where shipments needed to move between trucks, trains, ships, and planes. Traditional systems treated each transportation mode separately, creating inefficiencies at every transfer point. Our AI could optimize the entire journey as a single integrated process. When we ran simulations using real shipping data, the results were astounding. We could reduce total shipping time by 25% and cut costs by 40% compared to existing solutions. I knew we needed to test our system with a real company, but approaching major corporations seemed impossible for two college students. Instead, I contacted every small and medium-sized business in the Dallas area that shipped products regularly. After 57 rejections, I finally convinced Bradley Williams, owner of Williams Specialty Foods, to try our system for free. Bradley's company shipped gourmet food products to restaurants across Texas. His logistics were a nightmare of missed deliveries, damaged goods, and frustrated customers. He agreed to let us analyze his shipping patterns for 30 days, figuring he had nothing to lose. The results exceeded our wildest expectations. Our AI identified optimal shipping routes that reduced Bradley's costs by 43%, while improving on-time delivery rates from 68% to 96%. His customer complaints dropped to nearly zero, and he started receiving praise for the fastest, most reliable deliveries his restaurants had ever experienced. Bradley was so impressed that he offered to pay us $5,000 per month for continued use of the system. He also introduced us to his friend Maria Santos, who owned a medical supply distribution company. Maria's business shipped critical medical equipment to hospitals, where delays could literally cost lives. After implementing FlowStream for Maria's company, we reduced her average delivery time from 48 hours to 18 hours, while cutting shipping costs by 38%. She immediately signed a 12-month contract worth $15,000 per month and began referring us to other medical supply companies. Word spread quickly through Dallas business networks. Within 6 months, we had 12 paying clients and monthly recurring revenue of $85,000. Jake and I were making more money than most of our professors, but we lived like broke college students to maintain our secret. I opened a business bank account under the name Zane Rivers, using my middle name as my last name to avoid family detection. All FlowStream business was conducted under this assumed identity. I told my family I was doing consulting work to pay for school, which was technically true. The stress of maintaining this double life began affecting my academic performance, which ironically pleased my father. When my GPA dropped from 3.9 to 3.4, Robert nodded approvingly and said I was finally focusing on practical business skills instead of theoretical nonsense. Meanwhile, FlowStream was growing exponentially. We hired our first 2 employees, Sarah Chen, a brilliant programmer from MIT who specialized in machine learning, and David Rodriguez, a logistics expert with 15 years of experience at FedEx. Both took significant pay cuts to join our startup, betting their careers on our vision. By my senior year, Flowstream had 23 employees and annual recurring revenue of $8.4 million. We had moved to a real office building and established partnerships with major shipping carriers. Our client list included medical supply companies, specialty food distributors, automotive parts manufacturers, and electronics retailers across Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. The irony wasn't lost on me that while my father lectured me about business fundamentals, I was running a multi-million-dollar company that he didn't even know existed. Every family dinner became an exercise in careful deflection as Robert and Marcus discussed their latest real estate deals while I mentally calculated Flowstream's quarterly revenue projections. The most painful moments came when Marcus would make jokes about my consulting hobby or when Robert would express concern about my apparent lack of direction. They saw a directionless college student struggling to find his place in the world. In reality, I was the CEO of the fastest-growing logistics technology company in the Southwest. Everything changed during the fall semester of my senior year when our client base suddenly exploded. Maria Santos had recommended us to Houston Methodist Hospital, one of the largest medical centers in Texas. Their logistics coordinator, Janet Parker, was desperate to improve their supply chain efficiency after several critical medical emergencies were complicated by delayed equipment deliveries. We implemented Flowstream across Houston Methodist's entire network of 12 hospitals and clinics. The results were spectacular. Medical equipment delivery times improved by 57%. Emergency supply availability increased by 82%. And overall logistics costs decreased by 39%. Most importantly, doctors and nurses could access critical equipment faster, potentially saving lives. Dr. Amanda Foster, Houston Methodist's Chief Operating Officer, was so impressed that she presented our case study at the Texas Hospital Association's annual conference. Her presentation, titled Revolutionary Logistics Technology Saves Lives and Money, was attended by hospital administrators from across the state. Within 30 days of that presentation, we received inquiries from 47 hospitals and medical centers. Our phone rang constantly with requests for demonstrations and implementations. Jake hired 3 additional programmers just to handle the technical demands of rapid scaling. The medical success story caught the attention of Rebecca Martinez, logistics director for H-E-B, Texas's largest grocery chain with over 400 stores. Rebecca had heard about our work through hospital industry connections and wondered if our technology could optimize grocery distribution networks. Grocery logistics presented unique challenges that perfectly showcased Flowstream's capabilities. Fresh produce, frozen foods, dairy products, and dry goods all required different handling, timing, and transportation conditions. Our AI excelled at managing these complex, multivariable optimization problems. After a successful pilot program at 20 H-E-B stores in the Austin area, Rebecca signed a contract worth $2.4 million annually to implement Flowstream across their entire Texas operation. Suddenly, we had a Fortune 500 client and revenue that put us firmly in the big leagues of business-to-business software. Word of the H-E-B deal spread through industry networks like wildfire. Walmart's regional distribution managers started asking questions. Target expressed interest. Amazon's logistics team requested a demonstration. That's when Jessica Chen from Andreessen Horowitz called. Jessica had heard about Flowstream through her network of portfolio company executives. One of their investments, a Dallas-based e-commerce startup, had been using our platform and couldn't stop praising the results. Jessica asked for a meeting to learn more about our technology and growth trajectory. I had heard of Andreessen Horowitz, one of Silicon Valley's most prestigious venture capital firms. They had invested in Facebook, Twitter, Airbnb, and dozens of other technology unicorns. The idea that they might be interested in Flowstream seemed surreal. The due diligence process was intense and eye-opening. Jessica's team analyzed every aspect of our business: financial statements, customer contracts, technology architecture, competitive positioning, and market opportunity. They interviewed our clients, our employees, and even our customers' customers. Their conclusion was stunning. Flowstream wasn't just a successful regional software company. We were sitting on technology that could revolutionize global logistics, a market worth over $1 trillion annually. Our AI platform was 3 to 5 years ahead of anything competitors were developing. Jessica offered a Series B funding round of $200 million at a $1.2 billion valuation. I nearly fell out of my chair. In less than 4 years, our dorm room project had become a unicorn, a privately held company worth over $1 billion. But the story didn't end there. Word of Andreessen Horowitz's offer leaked to other venture capital firms, triggering a bidding war that consumed the next 60 days. Sequoia Capital offered $300 million at $1.5 billion. Kleiner Perkins countered with $400 million at $1.8 billion. The competition reached fever pitch when Google Ventures entered the bidding with a strategic partnership offer. They proposed a $500 million investment at a $2 billion valuation, plus preferred access to Google's cloud computing infrastructure and potential integration with Google Maps for route optimization. I found myself in increasingly surreal situations. On Monday mornings, I would fly to Silicon Valley for board meetings with venture capital partners who managed billions in assets. On Monday evenings, I would return to Dallas for family dinners, where my father lectured me about developing work ethic and professional ambition. The contrast was almost unbearable. During one particularly painful dinner, Marcus announced his promotion to senior partner in Robert's firm. My father beamed with pride and delivered a speech about Marcus's dedication, intelligence, and bright future in the family business. Then Robert turned to me with disappointment in his eyes. "Zane, maybe watching your brother succeed will finally motivate you to amount to something. You're 27 years old and still playing around with consulting projects. When are you going to get serious about your career?" I excused myself from the dinner table and walked outside to take a call from Goldman Sachs about Flowstream's potential initial public offering. The investment banker on the phone was discussing a potential valuation of $3 to $5 billion. I stood in my childhood backyard, listening to financial projections that would make me one of the wealthiest people in Texas, while my family inside believed I was a failure who couldn't hold a real job. That night, I made the decision to go public. Flowstream would become a publicly traded company, partly to fuel our expansion plans, but mostly because I needed my father to understand what I had accomplished. An IPO would make our success undeniably public and impossible to dismiss as a hobby or consulting project. The initial public offering process transformed Flowstream from a fast-growing private company into a media sensation. Goldman Sachs, our lead investment bank, projected an opening valuation between $3 and $5 billion based on our revenue growth, market position, and technological advantages. The roadshow took me to New York, Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, presenting our company to institutional investors, pension funds, and mutual fund managers. These were the most sophisticated financial minds in the world, and they were universally impressed by our technology and business model. I told my family I was interviewing for positions across the country, which was technically accurate. I was interviewing with potential investors who would own positions in our company. Robert became increasingly frustrated with what he perceived as my pickiness and unrealistic expectations. "Zane, you can't afford to be selective," he said during one of our weekly check-ins. "You're 27 years old with no real work experience. You should be grateful for any entry-level position that offers benefits and growth potential." The irony was devastating. I was being courted by investment firms that managed hundreds of billions in assets, while my father worried about me finding an entry-level job with basic benefits. 2 months before my MBA graduation, a family crisis amplified the emotional complexity of our situation. My grandfather, William, Robert's father and the patriarch of our family, suffered a massive heart attack and was rushed to Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas. The entire Thompson family gathered in the cardiac intensive care unit waiting room. William had built the construction company that Robert eventually transformed into a real estate empire. He was 83 years old and had been the family's source of wisdom and stability for as long as I could remember. As we waited for updates from the cardiac surgery team, Robert used the emotional moment to deliver what felt like a final ultimatum about my life direction. With tears in his eyes, he pulled me aside and spoke with raw honesty about his fears and disappointments. "Zane, your grandfather is dying, and he's disappointed that you haven't carried on the family tradition of business success. William built something from nothing. I expanded what he built. Marcus is continuing that legacy. But you're throwing away every opportunity we've created for you. His words hit harder because of the genuine emotion behind them. Robert wasn't just criticizing my career choices. He was expressing deep fear that I was wasting the advantages and opportunities that previous generations had worked to provide. In the middle of this conversation, my phone rang with an urgent call from Goldman Sachs about accelerating our IPO timeline. Market conditions were perfect for a technology offering, and they wanted to move our public debut from late spring to early March, just weeks after my graduation. I stepped outside the hospital to take the call, and Robert followed me, curious about what seemed to be an important business conversation. I tried to keep my voice low, but Robert was standing close enough to hear fragments about FlowStream, employee equity, and IPO pricing. When I finished the call, Robert confronted me immediately. His face showed a mixture of hope and suspicion as he demanded to know about my involvement with FlowStream Technologies. Panicked and emotionally exhausted from the hospital situation, I made the worst decision of my life. I told Robert that I was working as a junior consultant for FlowStream, helping them prepare for their IPO. I claimed I had a small amount of employee equity, which explained why I was receiving calls about the offering. Robert's face lit up with momentary relief. Finally, his son was involved with a real company going through a legitimate business process. But his satisfaction quickly turned to skepticism as he pressed for details about my role, responsibilities, and compensation. I couldn't provide specifics that satisfied his business acumen without revealing the truth, so my answers became vague and contradictory. Robert's excitement turned to anger as he realized my explanations didn't add up. That evening, Robert called a contact at Goldman Sachs and made inquiries about FlowStream Technologies. The person he spoke to confirmed that FlowStream was indeed preparing for an IPO, but they didn't know specific details about employee roles or equity distribution. Based on this partial information, Robert concluded that I was either lying about my involvement or grossly exaggerating a minor consulting position. He assumed I was living in a fantasy world, imagining myself to be more important to the company than I actually was. This led to the most painful conversation of my entire life. Robert accused me of dishonesty, delusions of grandeur, and an inability to face reality. He said I was living in a fantasy land where consulting work was equivalent to real business success. Zane, you've convinced yourself that you're some kind of important business executive when you're probably just data entry or administrative support. This is exactly the kind of self-deception that's preventing you from building a real career. The conversation escalated until Robert delivered his final verdict on my character and prospects. I'm done enabling your inability to face the truth. You need to accept reality and start building an actual career instead of pretending to be something you're not. I wanted desperately to tell him the truth, to show him financial statements proving that FlowStream generated more revenue in one quarter than his real estate company made in an entire year. But pride and hurt feelings kept me silent. If my father couldn't trust me enough to believe in my success, then he didn't deserve to share in my triumph. That night, as my grandfather fought for his life in the intensive care unit, I sat in my car in the hospital parking garage and made a decision that would define our family's future. Robert would learn about my success the same way everyone else would. When FlowStream went public and my name appeared in financial headlines as one of the youngest self-made billionaires in American history, March 15th marked both my MBA graduation and FlowStream's initial public offering on the NASDAQ stock exchange. The timing felt like destiny or cruel irony, depending on perspective. After 4 years of building a company in secret while pursuing a degree to appease my father, both journeys would conclude on the same day. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning to join Goldman Sachs's final pre-market conference call. Our stock would begin trading under the ticker symbol FLOW at 9:30 Eastern Time. Based on institutional investor demand, they were raising our opening price from $35 per share to $45, indicating unprecedented enthusiasm for our offering. Jake called from our office, where he had spent the night monitoring final technical preparations. Zane, I can't believe this is actually happening. 4 years ago, we were eating ramen noodles and coding in your dorm room. Today, we're going public with a $4 billion valuation. The mathematics of our success still seemed abstract. FlowStream was issuing 20 million shares at $45 each, raising $900 million in capital while valuing the entire company at $4.5 billion. My 60% ownership stake would be worth approximately $2.7 billion, making me the youngest self-made billionaire in Texas history. At the graduation ceremony venue, I watched other families celebrating together while I sat alone in the auditorium. My mother Patricia had wanted to attend, but Robert forbade it, saying they shouldn't reward mediocrity with fanfare. Only my younger sister Emma had driven herself from college, defying our father's wishes to support me. Emma was 22 years old, a senior at Texas A&M, studying communications. She had always been the family peacemaker, trying to bridge the gap between Robert's expectations and my unconventional path. She sensed the family tension but didn't fully understand the depth of conflict between our father and me. "Zane, where are Mom and Dad? This is your graduation day. They should be here celebrating with you." I made weak excuses about their busy schedules and business commitments, but Emma wasn't fooled. She pressed me about the family dynamics, sensing there were deeper issues I wasn't sharing. At 9:15, my phone showed Flowstream stock preparing to begin trading. Market makers were indicating strong opening demand, with potential pricing above $50 per share. Every dollar increase would add approximately $12 million to my net worth. At 9:27, my phone buzzed with a text message from Robert. The timing was so perfectly cruel that it felt scripted by a malicious screenwriter. As I prepared to become one of America's youngest billionaires, my father delivered his final rejection. "Don't expect help. You're on your own. Your mother and I are tired of watching you waste your potential. Figure out your life without our support." Emma noticed my emotional reaction to the message and tried to comfort me, not understanding the full context. She said Robert was just disappointed and would come around eventually. She couldn't know that in 3 minutes, everything would change forever. As the graduation ceremony began, I watched Flowstream's stock price on my phone with trembling hands. 9:30 Eastern Time arrived, and Flow began trading on NASDAQ. The opening price was $48, 6.7% above the projected price. $48 became $51, then $54, then $58. Each price increase represented millions in additional wealth. But the pain of my father's rejection overshadowed any financial satisfaction. The guest speaker, ironically, was Jennifer Walsh, a successful entrepreneur who had built and sold 3 technology companies. She spoke passionately about the importance of family support in building businesses, about parents who believed in their children's unconventional dreams, and about the courage required to pursue innovative paths. I sat alone in the audience, officially worth over $3 billion, but feeling completely abandoned by the people whose approval I had sought my entire life. The cruel irony intensified with every word of her speech about family encouragement and parental pride. At 10:15, Flowstream stock hit $64 per share. My net worth had increased by over $400 million in 45 minutes, but all I could think about was my father's text message and the empty seats where my parents should have been sitting. Emma kept glancing at me with concern, noticing my distracted behavior and emotional distress. She assumed I was nervous about job interviews or worried about my career prospects. She had no idea her brother was experiencing the most financially successful 45 minutes in Texas business history, while simultaneously enduring the most painful family rejection of his life. As I walked across the stage to receive my MBA diploma, my phone rang loudly through the auditorium. In my emotional distress, I had forgotten to silence it completely. The caller ID displayed Jake CFO Flowstream, just as a technical malfunction with the graduation ceremony sound system caused my ringtone to echo through the speakers. Hundreds of people in the auditorium could hear the electronic melody bouncing off the walls. I panicked, knowing Jake would be calling with final IPO numbers that would reveal everything I had hidden from my family for 4 years. My hands shook as I fumbled with the phone, trying to decline the call without drawing more attention. But in my nervous state, I accidentally pressed the answer button instead of decline. Jake's excited voice suddenly boomed through the auditorium's sound system, clear as if he were speaking into the ceremony's microphones. "Zane, holy shit, we did it. The stock hit $72 per share. The IPO raised $4.8 billion. You're officially worth $3.2 billion. The entire auditorium fell completely silent. Every conversation stopped. Every movement ceased. Hundreds of graduate students, faculty members, and family members stared in my direction as Jake's voice continued echoing through the speakers. Goldman Sachs is calling this the most successful logistics technology IPO in history. CNBC wants to interview you in 1 hour. The Wall Street Journal is running a front-page story tomorrow about the mysterious billionaire CEO who built his company in secret. I stood frozen on the graduation stage, diploma in my left hand, phone in my right hand, as Jake kept talking without realizing the entire ceremony could hear him. "Sir, are you there? The board wants to schedule a press conference for this afternoon. We've already got acquisition offers from Microsoft and Amazon. This is absolutely insane. Your dad is going to flip when he finds out his son just became one of the youngest self-made billionaires in American history." The graduation ceremony had completely stopped. The dean of the business school looked confused and concerned. Faculty members whispered among themselves, trying to understand what was happening. Graduate students began pulling out their phones to record what seemed like an incredible moment. Emma's scream of pure joy cut through the silence. She had finally understood what was occurring. Her brother wasn't a struggling recent graduate with uncertain career prospects. He was a secret billionaire who had just achieved the ultimate American dream while their father was rejecting him via text message. "Oh my God, Zane! Oh my God, you did it! You actually did it!" I finally managed to speak into the phone, my voice carrying through the auditorium speakers. "Jake, I'm at my graduation ceremony. I'll call you back in 1 hour." I hung up, but the damage was done. The revelation was complete. The entire auditorium had heard every word of the conversation that exposed my secret identity as the CEO and primary owner of Flowstream Technologies. Word spread through social media within minutes. Graduate students posted videos on Instagram and TikTok with captions like, "Just witnessed a secret billionaire revealed at graduation, and this guy just found out he's worth $3 billion while getting his MBA." The ceremony tried to continue, but the energy had completely shifted. Everyone wanted to know more about the student who had apparently built a multi-billion-dollar company while attending business school. Faculty members looked at me with new respect and curiosity. Fellow students stared with mixtures of admiration and disbelief. Emma couldn't contain her excitement and pride. She stood up in her seat and shouted, "That's my brother. That's my incredible, amazing, brilliant brother." The dean eventually restored order and completed the graduation ceremony. But the focus had permanently shifted. Local news stations, alerted by social media posts, began arriving at the venue. Financial reporters, monitoring Flowstream's IPO, started connecting the dots between the company's mysterious young CEO and the graduation ceremony revelation. By the time I walked off the stage with my diploma, my phone was ringing constantly, with calls from journalists, investors, and business leaders. The secret I had maintained for 4 years was completely exposed in the most public way imaginable. Emma rushed to find me after the ceremony, tears of joy streaming down her face. She threw her arms around me and whispered, "I always knew you were special, but this is beyond anything I ever imagined. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so sorry Dad and Mom aren't here to see this moment." Her words hit me harder than Jake's announcement. The family support I had craved for years was finally here, but it came from my sister, not my parents. The people whose approval I had sought most desperately had chosen to miss the moment when my success became undeniably public. Within 2 hours of the graduation ceremony, every major financial news outlet in America was covering the Flowstream IPO and the dramatic revelation of my identity. CNBC led with a breaking news banner. "Secret billionaire revealed. 27-year-old CEO built $4 billion empire while attending business school." The Wall Street Journal published an extensive profile titled "The Logistics King: How Zane Thompson Built Flowstream from Dorm Room to NASDAQ in 4 Years." Bloomberg ran a feature story about the youngest self-made billionaire in Texas history. Forbes immediately began preparing a cover story about millennial entrepreneurs revolutionizing traditional industries. The media attention was overwhelming but also validating. Industry experts interviewed for the articles called me a generational talent and the next Steve Jobs of logistics technology. Harvard Business School professors used Flowstream as a case study in disruptive innovation and strategic market positioning. Robert first learned about the news while reviewing market reports in his office. His secretary brought him a printout from Bloomberg's website showing Flowstream's stock price and a photo of me from the graduation ceremony. The headline read, "Dallas student revealed as billionaire CEO of logistics unicorn." Robert stared at the article for several minutes, reading it 3 times before the reality fully registered. The son he had dismissed as a failure was actually the founder and majority owner of one of the most valuable private companies in Texas. The consulting work he had mocked was actually running a revolutionary technology business that generated more revenue than his own real estate empire. His business partners and clients began calling within the hour. Everyone in Dallas commercial real estate knew Robert Thompson, and now they knew his son was the billionaire tech mogul featured on every financial news program in America. The phones in his office didn't stop ringing for the rest of the day. Patricia, my mother, called me crying and apologizing for missing graduation. She explained that Robert had convinced her I was going through a delusional phase and needed tough love to accept reality. She had trusted his business judgment about my career prospects, and now realized they had been incredibly cruel to their extraordinarily successful son. Zane, honey, I don't know how to apologize for not being there today. We made a terrible mistake. Your father said you were living in fantasy, but you were actually living your dreams. Can you ever forgive us? Marcus called next, his voice shaking with disbelief and genuine remorse. He admitted he had been jealous of my confidence and independence, using our father's approval as a weapon against his younger brother. He confessed that my unconventional path had always made him question his own choices. Zane, I owe you the biggest apology of my life. I was so insecure about my own success that I needed to tear you down to feel better about myself. You were building something incredible while I was just following Dad's script. I hope you can forgive me and give me a chance to be the supportive older brother I should have been all along. The most difficult call came from Robert himself. His voice was barely above a whisper, heavy with shame and regret. Son, I don't know how to begin apologizing. I've made the worst mistake of my life. I let my pride and narrow definition of success blind me to your incredible achievements. Can you ever forgive me? I let the silence stretch for almost a full minute before responding. I wasn't angry anymore. The financial success and public validation had purged most of my resentment, but I needed my father to understand the full impact of his years of rejection and dismissal. Dad, I spent 4 years building a billion-dollar company, while you told everyone I was a failure. I revolutionized an entire industry while you said I was wasting my potential. I became everything you claimed to value in business success, independence, innovation, and leadership, and you rejected me because it didn't look like what you expected. Robert broke down completely on the phone, his voice cracking with emotion. You're right. I was so focused on forcing you into my vision of success that I couldn't see the incredible success you were creating on your own. I projected my own fears and limitations onto you instead of trusting your intelligence and vision. The conversation continued for over an hour as Robert acknowledged the specific ways his rejection had hurt me. He realized that his definition of business success had been narrow and outdated, rooted in his own experience rather than the evolving economy. He admitted that his treatment of me reflected his own insecurities about technology and changing business models. I established clear boundaries for rebuilding our relationship. The family could welcome me back into their lives, but it would be as equals, not as a disappointing son seeking validation from a disapproving father. I would forgive them, but I wouldn't forget the years of dismissal and rejection. Dad, I want our family to be close again, but it has to be based on mutual respect. You can't go back to treating me like a child who needs your approval and guidance. I've proven I can build something significant. Now I need you to trust that I can continue making good decisions about my life and career. Robert agreed to every condition I established. He understood that rebuilding our relationship would require him to fundamentally change how he viewed success, business, and his role as a father. The reconciliation process took several months and wasn't always smooth. Robert struggled to adjust from being the patriarch who dispensed wisdom to being a father who respected his son's achievements. But he committed to changing, attending family therapy sessions, and working to understand how his traditional mindset had damaged our relationship. 6 months after the IPO, Flowstream announced its acquisition of Thompson Real Estate Development Company for $240 million. Robert became a regional vice president in Flowstream's real estate and facilities division, finally working for his son's company instead of expecting his son to work for him. The role reversal was initially uncomfortable for both of us, but it ultimately strengthened our relationship. Robert brought valuable experience in construction, zoning, and property development that helped Flowstream expand into real estate logistics. I gained a deeper appreciation for his business acumen and the foundation he had built for our family's success. Marcus joined Flowstream as our general counsel, bringing his legal expertise into the family business in a way that honored both our talents. The sibling rivalry that had defined our relationship transformed into genuine partnership and mutual admiration. Marcus helped navigate the complex legal challenges of rapid growth while I focused on technology development and strategic vision. The experience taught me profound lessons about success, family, and forgiveness. True achievement isn't just financial. It requires having the courage to pursue your vision despite opposition, the wisdom to forgive those who doubt you, and the strength to maintain your values even when achieving tremendous wealth and power. 1 year after our IPO, Flowstream had grown to over 5,000 employees and expanded into international markets. Our technology was revolutionizing logistics operations for companies across 6 continents. But the success that meant the most to me was rebuilding my relationship with my family based on mutual respect and understanding. At Flowstream's first annual shareholder meeting, I stood before institutional investors, employees, and family members to discuss our achievements and future plans. But I spent most of my speech talking about the importance of believing in yourself when others don't, maintaining integrity during rapid success, and the power of forgiveness in healing relationships. Success without meaningful relationships feels hollow, I told the audience. Building a company is important, but building and rebuilding family connections based on respect and understanding is what gives life true meaning. Emma, now working as Flowstream's Director of Communications, introduced me at company events as my brother, the billionaire who never forgot his values. Robert and Marcus sat in the front row, beaming with genuine pride as I discussed our company's mission and achievements. The greatest victory wasn't the IPO valuation or the media recognition. It was transforming a family torn apart by misunderstanding and pride into a united team working together towards shared goals. We learned that success comes in many forms, that family bonds can survive serious mistakes, and that forgiveness and understanding are more valuable than any financial achievement. Flowstream continued growing and innovating, but our family's story became the foundation for everything we built together. We proved that it's possible to achieve incredible business success while maintaining strong personal relationships, as long as those relationships are based on mutual respect rather than traditional authority structures. Today, when young entrepreneurs ask me for advice about balancing family expectations with unconventional career paths, I always tell them the same thing. Stay true to your vision, work harder than anyone expects, forgive those who doubt you, but never compromise your values for anyone's approval. Real success means building something meaningful while keeping the relationships that matter most. The American dream isn't just about individual achievement. It's about creating value that benefits others while maintaining the personal connections that give life meaning. Flowstream's success story became our family's redemption story, proving that understanding and forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds caused by pride and misunderstanding. What challenges have you faced when family members didn't believe in your dreams or goals? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story inspired you to pursue your own unconventional path, or reminded you to appreciate the family members who support your journey, please hit the like button to let me know. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about overcoming obstacles and achieving success against all odds. And if you know someone who's struggling with family expectations or building something incredible in secret, share this story with them. Sometimes we all need reminding that our biggest breakthroughs often come right after our most challenging moments. Thank you for listening, and I hope your own journey towards success brings you both achievement and the meaningful relationships that make victory truly worthwhile.